Hello and welcome back. Today we're reacting to some more Kurzgesagt. This one just dropped today, I think. Anyway, today we're reacting to why Korea is dying out. Is Korea dying out? Huh. I'm not familiar with Korea at all, but yeah, I can't wait to hear more.
Every 2 years, 1 million Japanese disappear.
What?
China's population will halve by the end of the century.
What do you
The
mean?
median age in Italy has reached 48.
Wait, whoa. Why are people disappearing? Are they having a population crisis over in that neck of the woods? I know that on average the global population is rising, but is it maybe dipping in this neck of the woods? I said neck of the woods twice. I'm not sure why, but you know what? That's just who I am.
All around the world, birth rates are crashing. Is
Really?
humanity dying out? What's going on, and how bad is it?
That's good. Isn't that a good thing though? Because we've had like a population problem forever, right? It's been exponential up. We can't maintain that forever. Isn't it a good thing if birth rates are dwindling and slowing down? Dun, dun, dun.
For hundreds of thousands of years, the human population barely grew at all, haunted by disease, famine, and war until the Industrial Revolution. Exponential progress led to exponential growth, pushing our numbers to 6 billion in the year 1999 and 8 billion just 24 years later.
We had more free time.
And our numbers will continue to rise for at least another 60 years, but this growth obscures something. People kind of stopped having babies. For a stable population, every couple needs to have 2 children on average. If the number is higher, it grows. If lower, it shrinks.
Well, here's the thing, too, that we have to consider. At least where I live in the United States, it used to be, rewind like 100 years, it used to be that as a family of 4, so a mom and dad and 2 kids, the dad could work full-time. The mom could stay home full-time and be a stay-at-home wife, take care of the kids, be responsible for household chores, while the father went out, made a living, brought in the income, put food on the table. Yes, very sexist, okay? But that's how the world worked. And that was a typical family structure. Now, that one income used to be able to support that family of 4. In today's world, at least here in the US, that one income, unless you have a good job, a really good job, cannot basically do anything with a family of 4. It cannot sustain it. Now you need both parents to work. And what does that mean? That means that for a lot of households, you have both parents working, and so there's no longer a stay-at-home parent figure that can focus on housework, that can focus on cooking, cleaning, focusing on the kids. Everyone's working a 40-hour week, sometimes more, because a lot of people need more than one job to make ends meet. So what does that actually mean? That means that a lot of people are choosing that would have otherwise been home are now choosing to stay and focus on their career. Because the dollar's not worth what it used to be. It doesn't go as far as it used to, not even close. I don't know. I think that has something to do with it too. I think a lot of people want to focus on their career, want to focus on making more money, want to focus on progressing and getting promoted and having that career, fulfilling their dreams. And it's a lot harder to have a family infrastructure that's actually family friendly these days. I might be off base, but I think that has something to do with it.
If it's well below, it shrinks a lot and quickly. Like in South Korea, one of the hottest exporters of pop culture. Its fertility rate lay at 0.8 children per woman in 2022, the lowest in the world. This means 100 South Koreans of childbearing age today will have 40 kids, who then will have 16 kids, who then will have 6. If nothing changes, then within 100 years, there will be 94% fewer young people and South Korea will see a population implosion.
Jeez.
That is, if things stay the same. We have yet to see if there's a bottom to fertility rates. Although looking at the bigger picture and absolute numbers, this population will not shrink that much. It simply returns to the level it once was. In 1950, there were 20 million South Koreans. In 2023, there are 52 million, and by 2100, there will be 24 million again. But the issue is not that there will be fewer South Koreans, the issue is the composition of the population.
Yeah.
In 1950, the median age was 18. In 2023, it's 45. In 2100, it will be 59.
Wow.
A country of seniors.
Yep.
And South Korea is far from alone. China may be seeing the steepest population reversal in history.
The infrastructure that has been built, there's been so much investment into infrastructure, into housing, into commercialization, into industry to support this population. So what happens to all of that as the population continues to decline?
Unstoppable at this point. Rapid industrialization, urbanization, and rising incomes meant that the Chinese started to prefer smaller families. That, plus the introduction of the one-child policy, which aimed to slow population growth, means that China has had a low fertility rate for decades.
Yeah.
With a fertility rate of 1.16 births per woman, within 4 generations, 100 young Chinese will turn into 20. China's fertility rates are now one of the lowest in East Asia, lower than even Japan's. In comparison, Europe's depopulation is much slower despite low fertility, since unlike Asia, most states have had a steady flow of immigrants. The impact is complex, as a good chunk of immigrants come from other low fertility rate areas. The number of immigrant women who do have a lot of children is not yet high enough to make a big dent, and fertility rates of immigrants tend to adjust to the native population within 2 to 3 generations. In Eastern Europe, the decline has sped up even more because many young people have emigrated to stronger economies like Germany, whose median age is one of the highest in the world at
They see more opportunity. There's more opportunity for themselves to move to one of these areas. So that completely makes sense. As countries become more and more advanced, there's less and less of a need for larger families too. So on top of all the complexities that we already talked about, there's the reason for having a big family. So my parents were farmers, right? They had farms. And what do you do when you have a farm? You have kids to help out because they can help with everything. One of them can inherit it one day, and then they can have a bunch of kids to help out. And it becomes sort of like a family business. And that's one of the biggest reasons why you would see families with 10, 12, 13 kids, is because those kids were being productive as well. So it wasn't just to have kids. It was because there was a reason for it. There was a gain from it other than the joy of parenthood, which is amazing. I love my kids more than anything in the world, but 2 is enough for me. I'm good there. But yeah, they used to have a good reason to have more kids. And that reason in developed countries doesn't exist as much as it used to.
46. Latin America fell below replacement in 2015. In the US, immigration is the only thing keeping the population growing substantially. There are still places where fertility rates have not fallen below replacement yet. In much of the Middle East, North and Sub-Saharan Africa, fertility is still high, which creates the same concerns about overpopulation as when Asia grew very quickly in the 1950s, but that turned out to be unfounded. But recently, the UN has reduced its forecast for Africa's population drastically. For Nigeria, estimates were lowered from 733 million to 546 million by 2100. Similar trends are being noted across the continent. As Africa develops, fertility rates are shrinking much faster than anticipated. It's becoming more likely that East Asia's story will repeat itself. By the end of the century, most places in Africa may be below replacement too. So declining birth rates and aging populations have become a general trend all over the world. Why is all of this a big deal? Demographics and poverty. For a functioning society, you need enough people in the prime of their lives. Young and middle-aged people do most of the work. In any economic system, working-age people create a society's wealth.
You almost hate to say it out loud, but there is a certain age group, generally speaking, that meaningful and actively contributes towards the economy. And that age group is not 0 to 18. And it's not, say, 65 and up. When you hit that age, you're generally retired and you're not actively contributing to the economy. You're not working a job. You're not typically making large purchases or circulating money or goods or services through the economy. It's typically that 18 to 65 age group. And so if you kind of skew those ratios of what's actually available in terms of people in those age groups, you can see how that could negatively impact the economy. So while it's something that maybe sounds horrible to say out loud, it is a very valid concern.
Retirement, you stop contributing as much to the economy, but the majority of healthcare costs are generated by seniors.
Yeah.
The way the world worked in the past was that a lot of younger people took care of a few older people. Imagine a society where most people are older than 60. The financial burden for the young will be immense, unsustainable, even for the richest countries.
Yeah.
Even in the best case, this will mean people having to work way longer, exploding healthcare costs and poverty, while states with shrinking incomes struggle to keep up with rising costs. Technology might soften the blow, but can't compensate entirely. We can see this happening already. 11 out of 31 provinces in China are running deficits for their pension funds. They got old before they got rich, and now they can't really catch up anymore. China's working age population is predicted to fall by 20%, or 200 million people by 2050, as much as today's entire working age population of the US.
Wow.
Infrastructure collapse is an almost universal constant of population decline, because infrastructure works at scale and doesn't get cheaper to operate if it's used by fewer people. If a population declines, be it because of urbanization or the loss of industry and employment, once people and their income disappear, the resources necessary to sustain infrastructure disappear too.
It's just the
You can
truth.
see it in many depopulated towns and cities in East Germany that suffered sharp population decline after German reunification. Or look at Japan. You can tour the countryside to see dying towns. Wait, if there are few people, won't life get cheaper and better, and there'll be more resources to go around?
No.
Well, no. Population decline doesn't lead to prosperity. It's people's ideas and work that create our prosperity, not the mere availability of resources. Another danger for aging societies is that elected governments could decide to mostly represent the interests and fears of their elderly populations, potentially leading to short-term thinking and a preference for conserving wealth over innovation.
Gee, it would be a shame if that happened. Oh wait, it's already happening.
That's not a society that can handle issues like climate change, which need massive investment and fresh ideas, something the world is already having a hard time with.
Right?
Many people think that having fewer humans on Earth is actually a good thing because our societies are too unsustainable. We're using up too many resources and because of climate change. The problem is that even if you want fewer humans, this process is very likely too slow to have a positive impact on the environment.
Well, and it's about perspective and ratios, right? Because having fewer people in general could actually be bad, just like having more people. It depends on the distribution of those age groups as well. That does play a huge role. And because healthcare has improved so much, we see that that is a lot higher distribution of elderly people like they were talking about, which means, like they were just saying, so I won't recap it too much here, but there's not as many working class people to support those populations that aren't actively contributing to the economy anymore. Now they've earned it, right? They've earned not to actively contribute to the economy. You know, this isn't a moral debate. This is just an economic debate. But they still need to be supported somehow. The infrastructure still needs to be maintained and paid for. And that's where the difficulty comes in. So a smaller population could be a great thing if we keep it distributed in a way that makes sense.
The world population is going to grow for at least 60 more years before it may shrink again. By then, we have to solve climate change. Likewise, any other upsides a lower population might have will most likely not materialize themselves this century. So, just like import people, the easiest solution seems to be immigration, but the fertility of immigrants adjusts to local levels within 3 generations. So you need a constant influx of new migrants, which is not sustainable long-term as birth rates are dropping everywhere.
Yeah, because you're still taking those people from somewhere. So you're making the population issue better in one country, but worse in another. So it's not really a fix, is it?
The only way would be to keep poor countries poor so that the young and motivated migrate to developed countries looking for opportunity and a better life. Kind of an immoral thing to wish for. By the end of
Right.
the century, Africa will have the highest number of young people in the world, and so African migrants might become the world's most sought-after immigrants, with elderly nations fighting hard for every person willing to make the move. Immigration can also create societal or cultural tensions, which is a universal phenomenon in all cultures, especially when
Yeah.
cultures with very different sets of values meet, often leading to a backlash that slows immigration down again. It's easy to be frustrated at this, but ignoring this will only divide societies, empower demagogues, and increase xenophobia. Economically, immigration is largely beneficial for societies, even if this seems counterintuitive to many people. Especially countries like the US, an immigrant nation built on the idea of personal freedom and opportunity through hard work, will benefit the most. Countries like this will have a clear advantage this century, especially if they can attract the world's brightest and most ambitious. Conclusion and our opinion. This topic is way too big, affects societies as
Yeah.
diverse as literally all of humanity. So please take this part with a gigantic grain of salt.
And I'm sure that they're oversimplifying here, right? This is a very complicated topic. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot of implications, a lot of variables. So I'm sure that they're oversimplifying too.
Obviously, we're looking at this from our Central European perspective. One way to look at falling birth rates is as a side effect of the world being less bad than it was. Especially women are freer, more educated, and wealthier than in the past.
Yeah.
But it turns out that if societies are better off, individuals often decide to have fewer kids. Interestingly, there's a gap between how many kids people want and how many they're having. The mean number of kids women in Europe want is around 2.3, much more than they're actually having. While we gained a lot of freedoms in the last century across continents and economic systems, that came at a cost. The tight-knit communities and family structures that were part of our nature, where kids could be brought up by a village. Today, young parents have to deal with different challenges and societal expectations. Women are kind of ground down between the wish and expectation to have a family and a career, being pressured to do both but not compromise either.
Yeah.
Men are sharing parental duties more equally than they used to, but are often still expected to be the provider. And it's sadly true that usually at least one parent's career is held back. In many developed countries, the gender pay gap is chiefly a pay gap between mothers and everyone else. But it's not just outside pressure. Our culture of individualism probably plays a role too. We have only one life to explore, be free, travel, have fun, accomplish something, and try to be happy. So people commit to partners later in life and often decide against big families or any at all. And that's fair. Nobody owes their country babies. So far, no country has successfully managed to increase birth rates significantly, so as of now, we don't really know what works. But here are a few options to at least make the lives of parents much easier. Free and abundant access to childcare, financial
help.
benefits for parents, more and cheaper housing.
That is one of the biggest problems, though. So you have the problems of the parents' career. Both parents need to work, and they want to focus on their career. So taking the whole freedom aspect out of it, right? Because, like they mentioned, women are a lot more free to make decisions, to have careers, to be individual, and actually have aspirations than they were. That's a wonderful thing. That's a great thing. But it's not the only thing contributing to it, because why are both parents forced to work? Because of the affordability. Children are expensive. And at least where I live, insanely expensive. I mean, I think for childcare, we were paying like $400 a week. That's $1,600 a month that we had to pay for childcare, just so that way our children could be watched while we worked. That's insane. And that you still have to provide food, you still have to provide entertainment and education and all that other stuff too. Materials, diapers are crazy expensive. And there's kind of an area, at least in the United States, where if you make a low enough income, the state does help you out. But if you make a higher income, the state doesn't help out as much. And even higher, they don't help out at all. And there's actually kind of a bit of a conundrum in there where if you're making decent money at a decent job, you're not getting any aid from the government whatsoever, any help at all. And you're actually worse off at the end of the day than the people who don't have a job and are just surviving off of aid from the government. And that is a horrible feeling. I've been there. You know, you have the good paying job and you see the people without jobs buying the nice things for their kids that you could never afford. And it just doesn't make sense. So it's super discouraging. But the affordability factor is a huge factor. Childcare, food, education, entertainment, all those things just add up, and it is so expensive. So if you have 2, 3, 4 kids, I can't imagine paying for that. Just being completely honest, I just can't imagine paying for that. And I'm a senior engineer, and I can't imagine paying for more than 2 kids. So yeah, that's crazy.
Parenthood has to stop being a career obstacle, and our culture needs to become more positive towards families. And that's something we can all work on. The next time you sit next to a crying baby, don't be a jerk about it. Kids are hard.
Yeah,
In the end, humanity will not
so
die out
awesome.
because we're having fewer babies. The age and composition of our societies changes quickly, and we need to deal with that sooner rather than later. But in the end, of all the incredibly hard challenges we've faced before, why would this be the one we can't solve?
True.
Getting to the bottom of the population crash starts with
Advertisement. So the other thing that I want to talk about too, and we've talked about this in previous videos, is just the human greed aspect. So I really truly believe in the next 100 years or so that we're going to make a decision as a species that either greed prevails and we're going to keep seeing the billionaires at the top that are hoarding wealth, or we're going to overcome greed and we're going to use technology, which is just getting insane. We're going to use technology to augment our living and replace a lot of the jobs that we have today. And the way that I say that can be either way is because if it goes the greed way, it replaces those jobs, and then you're just left with people without jobs that can't afford anything anyway. But the other opportunity that we have is to replace a lot of our jobs with robots and actually kind of turn that into a supporting system where maybe one day people don't have to work because almost everything is done for us by technology. I really think that we're going to make a decision on that in the next 100 years. I might not live to see it, but I truly believe that my kids will. So hopefully that goes in a good direction, but time will tell. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.